This was a true working hospital, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, whatever. The only thing that was missing from the hospital really was the interior
content
stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
we even had a student in the class who had been saved in that hospital. He would tell me, he's like, "Oh, this used to be the nursing wing. I died down there."
Yeah.
And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, when I was young, my mom brought me here, and I died down in this room. And this very talented doctor," and he rattled off his name, came in, and he saved my life, and I came back to life here in this hospital. And we're burning it. Ain't it great? And I said,
"Shut up! Really?"
Yeah.
Oh, we had guys who said, I was born in this hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. The house next to our hotel was Chris Rivier's house that he grew up in.
Oh, no kidding.
We're there that night of the party on Saturday night, and we're looking at, and I'm talking about, and I said, "Man, that house is just cool. That represents old Southern charm."
Right.
And he goes, "You think?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Yeah, that's where I grew up." I said, "Holy shit,
that's wild."
So
that's cool.
always a story that goes with it. But yeah. But the hospital, I couldn't even tell you how many rooms. There's got to be 100 rooms.
We did a walkthrough. I did a walkthrough with the camera rolling, and we checked out different parts and different things. I mean, this was a full functioning hospital. There's probably over 100 rooms in the place, different wings. And you know what? How many instructors did you bring down with you, Aaron? Let's put this in perspective. I mean,
I guess in the end we had 25 of us.
Right.
Yeah.
25 instructors, cream of the crop from the industry there teaching. And if you think about it, just over 100 students, right? So you're talking a 4-to-1 ratio, right? I mean, I'm not the best at math, but I can do that math, right?
Yeah.
And so, Aaron, what you guys did and what you brought to the table down there was huge for them and for the fire service, because what you bettered the fire service. When you guys left after that week, you were there all week doing other things, and then leading up to the culmination of 3 days of live fire training and moving lines and throwing ladders and cutting roofs, and and you had rock stars there to teach these kids. And when I say kids, it was everything from 18 to probably 60.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you have this cadre of instructors, and I have all these people all the time ask me, well, I'd like to teach for you. What's it take to teach for you? I don't even have an answer.
Yeah.
I really don't. Like, I feel pretty stupid because, like, I go to them, I said, okay, yeah, but I don't really know what to tell you. So it's just these people have come into my life in the fire service.
Right.
I've watched what they do, how they act, how they interact, and what they can bring to the fire service and bring to on scene and those that we interact with. And they're just that good at what they do.
I almost feel like Wayne's World. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. I mean,
they're
no,
so.
I don't mean that in a.
Yeah.
It's like
they're just such good people.
Yeah.
And every one of us is flawed. Every one of us has our act. That's a total shit show.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to the fire service, there's nobody better. I mean, are there other instructing groups that are out of this world? Absolutely.
Of course.
Listen, man, it ain't. I would be an idiot to think that on-scene training is the greatest and nobody else should be teaching like we do. I mean, come on, man. There's people who have that attitude, but it ain't coming from us.
Right.
But, I could list you out the people, and it's just the amount of experience that sits at the table.
Well, that's where I was going with this, right? And
447 years is what we counted in the gazebo that
And we
night.
weren't all in the gazebo that night.
Right.
Yeah, you could have added 35 for me if I'd been in there. So, yeah.
And I think that was and the funny part about the gazebo, after we're done training and everything, we're hanging out, having a couple of drinks at night, and I'm sitting back and just kind of listening because, and we start this math problem, which is a 4-letter word in my vocabulary, but he was using my calculator on my phone, so it was okay. And I remember going up to one of the kids, he's like, "I only got 2 years in." Because it was not only the instructors, but it was the people who were participating as well. Yeah. But I remember, like, I was just about to say, like, it doesn't matter. And I want to say it was either Dave. It's either Dave or I forget who else was there. But it's got to be Gallagher. He said, like, "Hey, it don't matter because you're part of that experience."
That's right.
And the person was like, "Oh, all right." And I was like, "Yeah, 2 years." I'm like, "All right, cool. We're throwing it in." And we just kept going around.
Yeah.
And that was awesome because people went around just sharing war stories, but not for the sake of butching up, of just being like, "Yeah, I remember this happening," and it was
and that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like
The conference was worth it just to sit there and drink PBR and listen to some of these things because that informal education happened.
Yeah, there's nothing like PBR, but
and of course I missed all that. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
well,
left.
yeah.
But however, no, but Rob, you're absolutely right. And you're hitting on something, and that's what we talked about before. Is like when you round yourself out, when Aaron rounds himself out with the right people, he doesn't know what the equation is to hire the next instructor. It's just, is it a fit?
No idea.
Does he bring something to the table, and what can he do to make this job better? And so you guys made the job better. When we were there, so I got in, the first day was all training, and then the second day was all live fire training when I was there. And you're talking about a very large building, and you had evolutions going on. I mean, I can't even name everything. Advancing a 2.5, advancing a line up the exterior through the windows. Obviously, truck work. You got roof, you got search, you had RIT, you had man through the floor, which I want to talk about in a minute because
that's a good drill.
Oh, it's a fantastic drill.
Yeah, in the truck they did forcible entry.
Absolutely.
In the engine we did 2 1/4 hose because they hadn't ever heard of 2 1/4
right.
hose.
Yep.
So Key sent us down 2 1/4 hose, and Elkhart provided us all our nozzles.
Right.
You know, and yeah,
Ladder, single man ladder throws from the
Oh, yeah,
exterior. I mean,
absolutely.
it just, the list goes on and on and on. What was afforded to these students when you're talking about a
Event
one
search.
VES.
Yeah,
Yeah,
The
yeah.
V and watching people do the VES, right? Like VES and a live fire.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
That was cool.
I'm sitting in the room with I'm gonna slip the Montgomery County.
Oh, Bobby Foss.
I'm sitting there with Bobby Foss, and we're confusing each other because he's going Rob, and I'm going Bob, and he's like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, but we're in there, and like watching them teach that before, and the guys coming in the room and training, and being like, hey, close that door.
Yeah.
And Bob going, they're gonna close the door later on this afternoon, trust me.
Yeah, when they had fire come down the hallway, they did. Yeah.
And I remember sitting in there because I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. We're gonna capture this, and like they got in that room, and it was real,
It was real. But those fires were real.
and there
Believe
was
me,
such stuff that was taken away from that.
Yeah, the one fire that we did, and again, these were 1403 fires.
Absolutely.
We were cautious about that. We were burning the proper products. You know, we prepped the building as best as that building could possibly be prepped. We cut our own vent holes. We came to find out that we had nothing but concrete roof
Unbelievable.
on the entire
Yes.
building.
Yeah.
Yep.
7 inches of buildup and 5 inches of concrete.
Yep.
So we boxed it all out. You know, that was our prep work during the week. We, you know, got a wet saw up there and a booster line. But these were real fires. There was no bullshit. This was not the stuff that, just hit it with the line once. You know, we're creating that horrible muscle memory in burn buildings every day where we teach them do this and shut off because we got to reset. Don't do that. You know, this was not that kind of stuff. This was the one fire for sure surprised me a little bit where we're pushing down the hallway and it went from pretty clear. I could see good with, you know, where everybody was for the most part. It was a light smoke condition to a pretty rough, dark situation really fast. Nothing was out of control. Proper check lines were in place. Safety officers were in place.
However, it's realistic.
But this was real. And there were some young firemen who hadn't really experienced that before. And when we came out, they're like, holy shit, man, that was really something. Well, yeah, that's really what happens in fires.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what happens at the county burn building or in a Connex
But
fire.
you talked about this in the beginning when you at the start of the day and mixing people up.
Yeah.
But in that fire, it was awesome. There was a guy, Lou, from upstate New York.
Luke Camiel, I don't know if I pronounced his name right, but yeah, home run guy, lieutenant from up there.
Right. And I had spoke with Lou a couple times. It's up at Gates, and this is an example of how awesome the training is because we talked about that, like somebody with a lot of experience versus people with very new experience. And Lou stepped right up into that role of an officer.
He did.
Even though he wasn't the officer.
Yes.
But like these guys, after working with him in that group for the day, were right with him. And I like, it was just, if there was a moment to capture, it was that. And unfortunately I was one cameraman, but like, he
was good.
Pushed them guys through.
Is that right? That's cool.
Yeah. We pushed down that hallway. He was the boss. I was the instructor with them, which that's a whole nother story. When you're running the thing, you have to have the right people to run it for you.
Right.
And that was it. Bart ran the operations. John Simpson is just, he and I have been friends a long time. He's been doing this for 40 some years. and the guy just has the biggest passion for firefighting I've ever met. And I've never seen a topic the man isn't really that sharp in.
It's awesome.
He's that good.
Yeah.
But he ran the ops end of it. Carl Haddon ran the command end of it. So I could just teach, which was really cool. The next one, I probably will step back so I can see the bigger picture. But I was the instructor on that line with those guys. Lou was the boss. The nozzleman was a young kid from, I think, Lafourche Parish or Thibodaux or somewhere down there. And it was a hard push. It was hot. It was really black. And we made the hit, got into the fire room, and had a lot of fire in there. And they did a great job. While other guys were searching, guys were forcing entry, VES going on. It was how fires are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And when you can train like that in such a realistic setting, it was amazing.
And not one point did I or anybody else feel in danger, which is the other side of it. Like, because I mean, I'm an officer myself, so I'm looking as I'm going through, and like all the check boxes are coming up, and I'm like, wow, this is like, not only is this just going to be a realistic AF, but like everything's here to protect us at the same time. And it was just like I said, that fire was awesome. Yeah. I remember coming out with Bob and just being like,
that was the one that we're
I'm going to go to the roof and take a break.
I'm super pissed at the moment, but so because I didn't get a chance to experience any of that when I was there.
Wait till you see the camera video.
No, I know, right? But the fun thing though for me is that, you know, I had the ability to see the other end of it. But where I want to go with this though is the experience you two just shared over the last few minutes of this podcast is incredible, because I think that's lacking. You know, we know guys that preach the word about realistic training. We know guys in the industry that, you know, want to push the envelope in training. Mm-hmm. And pushing the envelope and finding realistic situations or the ability to train in a realistic environment is so hard nowadays.
It is.
To do.
It is. Our hands are really tied. And don't get me wrong, I believe in NFPA 1403.
I get it. Of course.
I do.
Like, I'm not saying go burn. Right.
I believe in it to a degree.
Yeah.
And it's there because we've done stupid things and firemen died.
Yeah.
Bottom line. And here in New Jersey, we'll never be able to do it again.
I get it.
We know.
Yeah,
We know what happened.
New York. We did it in New York.
Right.
You know?
New York. I mean, guys went to jail over it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but it's got to be done somewhere, because
that's the thing.
Because otherwise, you're creating guys that they're not firemen.
We're not creating a real environment.
They're not used to what's going to happen in the street, and what's going to happen in the street today compared to what happened in the street 15, 20 years ago is so much more dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
So training them right now is way more important than even when we were probies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We've got a guy coming up in Greenville, South Carolina, Dave Mellon. He's going to do our next On Tap event. He talks about his program's Fire for Effect, bringing back the lost art of realistic fire training. And I told Dave, I'm like, hey, you better come to Burning in the Bayou next year, because this is what you talk about.
Yeah.
And he hits on, and he says, he's like, have you ever been able to put a fire completely out and overhaul the room?
Right.
Or just have the instructors say, I'll give it some water and then back out, you know?
Right.
And
it's so important. This job is a blue collar, dirty, snotty, bloody, get your ass kicked type of job. I don't care if it's volunteer career.
It is.
But you have to be exposed to that. And when we don't expose our own to that, how can we expect them to perform under the conditions when it's time to perform?
You can't.
Right.
You can't.
Aaron,
and
you're
is that who you would want coming for your family?
Well, that's right. I mean, of course, right? And so what you guys were able to do in Burning in the Bayou was exactly that. You just said it before. Your nozzle man was probably a younger kid. It's probably never made a push like that in his life.
No.
And you know what?
Not a lot of guys have.
Right. And the thing is that what they learned very quickly was, holy shit, this is real.
Yeah.
You know, and we go from alarm specialists and all that bullshit to all of a sudden it's time to be called upon. And I hate doing these cliche things like, oh, when it's time to get called on. Right. But it's true in a way, right? It's true that if we have never been able to give the firefighter or even the officer the ability to perform under the conditions in which they're called upon when it's time, how can we expect them to perform?
Andy Stump is a Navy SEAL who gave a talk at a fire conference, a couple episodes of FireX Talk, and he said that as a Navy SEAL, they go to 100% and they back off 10, and that's where they like to be at. And he said, and that the whole thing for him was that firefighters and Navy SEALs are very similar. They don't get to pick the battlefield that they go to. They don't get to pick the time they go.
Right.
But the one thing that they do is coordinate very well with each other, and like truck work, engine work, rescue companies, like they all converge with these specialized skills to go and attack an enemy, and they try to take advantage of every opportunity they have to exploit against that enemy. And if we don't do that, we're going to fail in that training. And that's what, like that, we're just talking about this. That's exactly what we did. We brought everybody to that 90% mark. And that's what we really need to do. Is
and I love it, man. I was there for 2 burns, and then I had to leave. I had to catch a flight. But I saw the burns from the outside. I didn't get to partake. And I wish next year, if we get invited back, wink, wink.
Yeah, that's a given.
We'll, I'll definitely be there for the long haul. And I just have to say, though, like, I can't implore these kids enough, not even kids, even guys that have 20 years on the job. Like, you need to get out. Nobody, I don't care what department you're in, nobody's going to the fires they used to go to, and nobody's having the experience they used to have. Nah. And so I can't implore them enough to go find that training that's going to really allow them to excel and to better themselves, and bettering themselves will then provide the better end product.
Right.
And I thought you guys really brought that. The ability to do what you were able to do, 1403 included, but
sure,
you had the ability to live burn in a real compartmentalized building.
And
doesn't get much better than that.
And that was the key too, is that building was easy for us to control.
Correct.
Things for the most part.
Right.
Because it's a concrete building, but there were certainly things we had to be careful of.
I thought it was amazing that after a live burn, within 5 minutes, we went from an area where we had not that much visibility to we can see across the hallways and down the corridors because you had the resources to ventilate smoke and reset.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes that's the crutch of what happens.
Yeah.
Like, you have a burn center, you have 2 rooms.
Yeah.
And here we went through 1, 2, 3, without any major issues.
Yep.
So like I said, it was just, and I'm blown away by, and then the other thing was your setup. Like, I have to say, you are a slick son of a bitch when it comes to the setup of, like, the mindset. The night before, having the chief from Biocane be like, don't be that guy, and having that talk, and then having Chief Crawford give his experiences from Pittsburgh and Bryson Street, like, really set the tone for everybody who is coming in to either the engine and the truck company operations or the RIT company operations, because now in their mind they're thinking of this, of these talks.
This is real. This stuff's real.
And it's real. And Chief Crawford, very real, and about his coming across about those experiences. Aaron, what's the logistics of getting the instructors in? Because, like, not like the dirty details, but
sure.
Like, because I mean that Dan coming out of Boston.
Yep.
We've got the guys coming out of North Charleston. You everywhere in the country. How many states?
I think we were 15 states.
15 states traveling down to Louisiana.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
My credit card starts smoking when I'm booking airfare. That's how it starts. It's I've been doing this a long time, so it's really just kind of second nature on how to do it. Try to get them all in around the same time and not make lots of trips. And but it's tough. And then Carl and Janet are really my right hand. They're so much smarter than I am, and they know all this stuff because of jobs they've done in the past and
they're really squared
businesses they've owned. They really they keep me so squared away because I am nowhere near an organized person when it comes to stuff.
Trust me,
and they pull me directly.
No
in.
comment.
They pull me directly in and fix all the shit that I screw up.
Yeah,
and they do that a lot. But so it's just a matter of trying to get everybody in, coordinating schedules, and then a couple van. We ran a couple big vans,
right?
And the costs and the overhead of doing something like this make it difficult. It really does. It's a logistical.
We talked about
process.
That a little bit the one night, and
it's hard. It's hard.
It's up there, and it kind of like for those who are out there who are trying to weigh out value, and you're having that internal struggle with you. That like this $300 for this conference. First off, 110%, it's worth it, but it goes into this whole these are the things that nobody thinks about, like renting 2 vans for a week. Getting the instructors in, having to do the prep work. Like, you didn't have a wet concrete sauce in your back pocket.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the fire department there, number one, you can't do this without that kind of a fire department and without that kind of support from your sponsors. So, for Key to send us basically a pallet load of hose,
Right.
for Akron to send us down cases of nozzles, without that and without the people like Affordable Drill Towers,
Yep.
Steve ponied up some money towards it. Honeywell paid for Friday night, which Friday night was our lecture night, our kind of opening
It
ceremony.
was fantastic. Yep.
Yeah, and I called Jim Walters at Honeywell and said, Jim, is there any chance you can help out with this? He's helped us with other programs. And he says, tell me what we need to do. We'll be there. And they paid a lot of money towards that because we couldn't have done that on our own. The cost to a student, to pass that cost on to a student,
I get it.
it would have been $600-700 a person, and nobody's going to pay that.
And you're moving that into a Friday night of pre-conference, essentially, like with guest speakers, and then you're rolling into your 2 days of conference with 3 tracks: engine company operations, truck company operations, and rapid intervention team operations.
That's what we did. Going forward, it looks like we may add a 4th track to accommodate more students, because we got to a point where I didn't like the number of students to the number of instructors, even though we were probably 4-1.
Yeah.
Which is really good. But there were points where we had bigger groups than I felt comfortable with. I felt that we could have been better at it. Like I told you, I've never done a show. I've never played baseball. I've never gone to a fire that I felt I did it right, that I could do it, that I couldn't do it better.
I get it. Absolutely.
And on scene, the minute we settle for what we've done, we probably should quit and give all our business to some other company who will be satisfied, because I'm not satisfied.
Yeah, you're not a corporate company here.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. If you saw the way I do things, corporations would throw up. So
I can only laugh because I understand what you're talking about.
But believe me, we don't do a lot of written lesson plans, because why would I don't need to write it out and tell Jim Crawford how to teach RIT, or write it out and tell Danny McCauley how to cut a roof, or tell Jeff Barker from Lufkin how to stretch a line. These guys know their job. As instructors, absolutely. I don't bring guys in that can't do it.
Well, so what you know and what you do well is your people.
Yes,
and you let your people perform.
That is something that I'll take the credit for.
Absolutely.
That's my strength. That's
absolutely, and that's the big picture.
You surround yourself with really, really good people, and they make you look a lot better than you are.
Trust me, I do it all day long.
And a written lesson plan has a tendency to chain you down.
Yeah.
You looked at that hospital and that training ground and all the things that you can do, and you have a mind, like you said it, like I know what I want to do, but then you bring in some of these rock stars, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, Aaron, have you thought about this?
Right.
And all of a sudden it's like, no.
Run with it.
Run with it.
And you guys were there when we did the walkthrough of the building. When all the instructors got together for the very first time, I got everybody in there. We walked through that building, and what did you get? You got an Art Bloomer with, a million years in the fire service saying, well, we could throw ladders here, or we could do this, or, Bobby Foss talking about the VES, and I could do it this way, or, there's so many. Jenny Grima, prime example. Jenny's our newest instructor, right? It was her first time on the road with us. She's a lead at FDIC now. She's a firefighter down in St. Lucie County, and she's doing training minutes and things like that. I didn't tell her how to do that 2 1/4 class,
right?
Because I got total faith that she's a home run. She knows what to do.
Exactly.
And did I ask her what she's doing? Yeah, because I was, number one, because I'm the boss and I kind of need to know these things. But number two, because I was interested too. I want to see what's going on. And I'm learning from them. Everywhere I go, I learn. I learned this weekend when we were up in Maine. Guys, a couple of the students showed me some stuff. I was like, wow. Total cool. I'm adding that to my repertoire.
Yep. So Aaron, I have to say real quick, just a quick shout out to 2 of your guys, Chris Losey and Chris Gay, out of North Charleston.
Yeah.
So these 2 guys did a man through the floor, right?
Absolutely.
Which is prevalent in the fire service. I know many stories of guys that have survived and line of duty deaths that have happened from guys falling through the floor.
Especially now with this lightweight construction.
Absolutely,
sure.
Right? And I just want to talk about this for a couple minutes. I shot content on it. We're still got to put it out on the actual evolution. But the one takeaway was these guys built a prop. They cut a hole in the floor. They framed out the hole. And then they were using plywood and busting the plywood up with tools to make it realistic. Because so often on the fireground, when we talk about realistic training, when we do the man through the floor routine, right? I mean, we have a clear hole. It's easy. We raise the guy up. Everybody feels good. We pat each other on the back. But in reality, you're talking about a floor that gives way. You're talking about jagged edges. You're talking about a situation that is not clean and easy, right?
Right.
And these guys put together a fantastic prop. And I had the ability to sit through one whole lesson of theirs and recorded the whole thing and interacted with them and talked to them. And I was blown away by that prop in a realistic training. But the best part about all of it was at the end of the day, after they showed everybody their training, they set it up. They showed you how to build the prop. They built it in front of the students, trained them how. Then they trained with them on how to do the firefighter removal. And they said, this might not be the best way. This is how we know how to do it, and it works well. But then at the end, they said, take what we just showed you and go teach it. Go train it. Go share the good word. Mm-hmm. And to me, that speaks volumes because it wasn't about them and it wasn't about their IP. It wasn't their know-how and experience. It's them passing it on and saying, I just showed you how to build this prop. Now take this home and teach your guys how to do that. And I think that's a testament to what you guys do and the staff that you have is that it is bigger than all of you. And as much as I hate that whole cliche thing of it's bigger than all of us, in that regard, it is, right? When you employ your students to take what they've learned to go back and teach it to their own people, you take those 12 kids that went through that one class, and if 4 out of the 12 take it back to their departments, I mean, think about how many people you're reaching based upon just an easy 20 not easy, but 20 minutes of training.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's again, we had talked about this before. We talked about this last time I was here. I don't know that I have a philosophy or anything like that, but my belief is that what we're doing serves something more than me.
Hell yeah.
And I want it that,
Amen.
If I die tomorrow, I want it to be very clear that maybe my legacy was that firefighters got trained and they're going to be better and they're going to do a good job.
Right.
And that's all it is. That's all it should be. It's not, we all got an ego. I wrote an article for Fire Engineering years ago called The Ego-Driven Firefighter.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with guys with a chip on their shoulder.
Right.
I want you to have a little chip on your shoulder. Be a tough guy a little bit, but also understand where that chip should end and leave it in your locker, And as instructors, it ain't. I would hope it's not about that. I know a lot of guys it isn't. Some it is, and students can see through that bullshit.
Right.
Firemen aren't dumb. We act dumb sometimes. We're not dumb. Well, we do dumb shit. Let's go that way. Yeah, let's go there.
Sometimes dogs are brown.
Yeah. But yeah. So when you get a Chris Losi and a Chris Gay, Losi's been a senior man for a long time. Hasn't promoted. Doesn't really care to promote. He loves being the senior fireman, and he's so good at it. And the guy, here's another guy that I met him through Fools or through FDIC. I don't even remember where we met or when. But I just saw something in him, and Bart said to me, this guy would be good to teach with us. I said, all right, bring him along. Let's see what he can do. And the minute he started teaching and I'm watching him, I'm like, yeah, this guy's, he's part of it.
Yeah, I get it.
Chris Gay, the first time he ever worked with us, we were burning a school in Bayou Cane. Right? That was the first time we ever did live burns down there, and we had an old school. Like, it was craziness. But I remember sitting with the Board of Education president there and the parish council president and all this stuff and saying, okay, what are we allowed to do? And he goes, well, what do you mean? Because it was slated for demolition.
Right.
And I said, well, can we break things? He goes, well, yeah, break things. It's going to get torn down anyway. Okay, can we set little fires? He goes, set big fires. You're the damn fire department. And I was like, yes, sir. Anything else I need to know? He goes,
I want to write this guy a thank you card.
Oh, let me tell you. And so, but I needed instructors. And this was going to be, the guys call it the Louisiana grind. Because we go down there, we know it's a week to 10 days.
Yeah.
And they work day and night. They work days building props and getting things ready, and then they teach at night. This past one, we did the fire school for the Thibodaux Fire Department that they do for a week every year, and we've been doing it for 5 or 6 years for them. So every night, we're doing different topics with just Thibodaux. And then it culminates with some live burns and stuff on Thursday night, and that's it. But every day during the day, we were there 7 or 8 in the morning, building props, getting stuff ready, prepping the building 1403-wise, And then at night, we would come back and teach. So
Right.
we would work till 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Guys would work till 2 or 3 in that heat, 100-degree heat, 90 degrees, high humidity. But that's the kind of instructors these guys are. They believe in it. And they're not getting, believe me, they're not getting paid a lot of money to do this.
Yeah.
And nor am I. But it's what they do.
Well, it's the mission, right? It's the love for
is.
the craft. I mean,
And
you guys are molding and shaping so many minds in the fire service, and I think that's so important to talk about.
And it's
We're lucky, man.
there's a
We're all
commonality that I see in your instructors, and so being from the Hudson Valley, we do not have an active Fools chapter, but so many of your instructors that were down there were relating Fools experiences.
Every one of them's a member.
And I think
that wasn't planned. It just happens.
yeah.
And they are the best of the best.
And it really goes down to that whole it's bigger than us, because these are all people who are not in it, like I said they're not in it for the money. They're not trying to game the system.
No.
They're simply there to pass knowledge along.
And there's a brotherhood in this company that I never would have dreamed of. And I live for it. I couldn't live without it, honestly. No, I'm not saying I couldn't live without the company. I couldn't live without those guys. They bring something so much different to it. Like, I can't even explain it.
Aaron, I get it. Because I'll tell you, from an outsider's point of view,
yeah, I don't want to sound like a
you're
douche, I'm
not
getting
at all.
choked up over it, but it's just how it is.
But listen, I have to tell you, I spent a day and a half down there. And not only did you make me feel welcome in what we do, because not everybody accepts what we do or our personalities or what we do, but you guys were totally open to us being there. But I will tell you this, there's a sense of jealousy when I go places like that and I see the camaraderie and I go, man, I would love to be a part of that. I love to be a part of that camaraderie.
Ah, you guys are.
No, I know, but I thank you. But you know what I'm saying, though? Like, there's that angle in the fire service that, like, there are so many kids out there, not even kids, grown adults, that are angling for something more in the fire service because they're just not getting it.
Yeah.
They're not getting it where they are, where they're firemen, where they practice, where they work, where they volunteer. They're just not getting that part of it. Yeah. And when you get to see that, and I've been doing this a long time, and I have friends all over the goddamn country, right? Sure. And very close friends. And and so I'm fortunate. But you know how many kids aren't or guys aren't? Right. How many people don't have the ability to have what you have with your group? And as an outsider looking in, like, people, it's a jealousy thing. Not jealous, but it's like, man, I'm longing for it. Like, I would love to have that in my life. You know what I mean?
I felt guilty being like when you were like, hey, this is Rob and he's going to do this. And the guy's like, all right. And I'm like, I don't deserve this kind of act. Like
Sure you do.
But like, it was just like, because they're that like what you're describing.
It's just so, you know what? This is a great way to kind of like start wrapping this up, right? Is that the beginning of this conversation, Aaron talked about the people that influenced him. When he was a little guy from New Egypt that went to this department, went here to train and paid out of pocket to go there just because he wanted to be bigger and better than what he had in his small town. And a lot of us have been through that. That goes to show that, like, you've come full circle, Aaron, that you have taken what you learned, influenced you, and now you have the ability to influence others. And you're doing that, rounding yourself out with a fantastic cast of characters that not only brings the good word and shares the passion for what we do, but they bring everything else with it. And when you talk about surrounding yourself with the people that bring quality and make you better, your staff makes you better.
By far.
Right. I agree. Yeah. My guys make me better. And I believe in that 100%. And so there's a lot of people out there that just don't have that. And I implore them, go find it. Go to training opportunities like this. If it's not on scene, it's another group. Make sure it's good, valid training that makes you better. And that type of stuff makes you better, not only hands on the fire ground and on the fire apparatus, but also on the back end too. Engage people, talk to people, learn their backstories, get to know who they are, and their stories make you better. Yep. Hands down.
Yep. So I got a couple things to add before we wrap that I think are kind of pertinent to it. So one is, my self pitch would be that it looks like we're going to do Burning in the Bayou Part 2.
I love that.
We're gonna have a lot of fun with that.
It looks like we're going to do that in March.
Nice.
We don't have confirmation yet. We're still ironing out a lot of details. There's a lot of details to iron out. I want to add a 4th track to it. I want to add a survival track to it.
Yep.
I think that allows us to have more students, and shrink down some of our groups a little bit, so we get a little even more personal with it. We had some good suggestions from students on how we could do better during the live burns,
Which is so important.
yeah, and we had I got some good input from some guys that and the Chiefs down there. Just I can't say enough for Chad. We talked about Chief Muir, Benton Foray, and Chief Boudreaux.
Right.
These guys, they're just so helpful, and they just keep. Tony Boudreaux kept coming to me. What else do you need? What other equipment do you need? So anyway, they're all in. It sounds like Chief Knoll, Jeff Knoll, talked about a lot of stuff that he wants to do at the next one.
Jeff Knoll.
Yep. So these guys, they're into it. We're gonna figure out how to do it again, how to do it better. The hotel is still standing. We didn't destroy it. So, and it was cool, because we had a party on Saturday night that actually Chris Riviere sponsored. His law firm sponsored.
That's cool.
And that was, it was just cool. We could all hang out around the pool and eat and drink and just bullshit. So I think we're going to bring all that together. That being said, a couple of the things that I saw, and this is where the influence happens and where it gets better and better. And us as instructors have some strength that I probably overlooked at times in what we can do for people. So that story I told you about me sitting back and watching, I don't know if we had that on camera if it was us bullshitting before, but when I went to Illinois Fire Service Institute, I'm sitting there watching, Bob Hoff teach, and I was watching Chief Hayde teach back when he was a lieutenant. And, all these guys, and I'm watching them move, and I'm thinking, God, I wish I could be one of them, and I'm soaking in everything that those guys say, right? And so I had that aha moment recently where there's a firefighter out there from Beloit, Wisconsin, named Brooke Ames, and she's got Misfit Hose Dragger is her Instagram thing.
Yeah.
And she's really big on physical fitness in the fire service and all that. And the interesting thing is, I'm sure there's lots of dudes following her because she's this really pretty girl. But it goes so far beyond that and so more inspirational that it really set me back in my mind. She put a post up of her as a really, really heavy, overweight girl. And then she put the post up of, the side-by-side pictures.
Right.
And she's in tremendous shape. She's a gym rat. She's ripped. And she's total badass, right? And, in fact, Ryan Pennington had her on his podcast at one time. So I remember seeing that post and saying, wow, that's really inspirational. And I wrote it to her. She messages me, and she said, you probably don't remember me. And I'm thinking, shit, I teach all over the place. I meet a lot of people.
That's tough, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I meet a lot of people.
Yeah, right. Where we go?
And man,
right.
I hope I didn't say something stupid, because I probably did. So she said 6 years ago or whenever it was, you were teaching at the Monroe Fire School in Monroe, Wisconsin. Do you remember that? I said, yeah, I do remember that. Shane Bemke from Illinois, from Northern Illinois, or one of the Fools groups out there. He brought me in there. He was kind of helping coordinate it. I was teaching engine stuff. Aaron Fields and his cadre were there teaching nozzle forward, and it was really cool. And she said, do you remember sitting there talking with a bunch of students in the pavilion? I said, I do remember that. I don't remember who was there.
Right.
I kind of remember the conversation. She said, well, I was one of those students. And she said, you wouldn't remember me because I was this big, heavy girl, a volunteer from a really little farm town. And we were asking you about what it took to be a firefighter and to do what you guys do. And I said, okay. And she said, you don't even realize it, but that conversation that day, I went home and started thinking, I can do this. And she said, I put my mind to it, and I lost 100 and some pounds.
Nice.
And I got on the job. And I'm going to give it back. And she's created this movement called 451 Firefighter, I think it's called, or something of that nature, because 450 Fahrenheit 451. Mm-hmm. And I got seriously, a lot of things don't amped me up. But I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And she said, you don't realize the influence instructors have on firefighters who are watching and just want this so badly but don't know how to get it.
Yep.
And like it really, I know what we do is important. I know that we're on a pretty big stage with FDIC, and On Scene's got a pretty big name, and we do pretty good stuff.
Right.
There's others that are bigger than us or better than us, but whatever. And but to hear that from her really took me back, and I really had to sit and think, and I was like, you know, really, I wouldn't say emotional, but maybe a little emotional about like, holy shit. And now the cool thing about that is she is changing firefighters' lives.
It's awesome.
And I'm watching her on Instagram, and she is taking off. And are a bunch of guys following her because she's a good-looking girl? Yep, guarantee. But the message, her message is so true, and it's so clear that an old fat guy like me or a young stud in the firehouse can follow it to the same degree. And for me, it made me realize more so that we do have that influence, and we are on that stage, and it's really, really important how we treat people and how we interact. And you never big league somebody. Never big league somebody.
And I think that's the message that comes out of tonight. I mean, it's just, you know, talking about yourself and your comrades, man. I mean, you guys are doing great things for the fire service. Your company, On Scene Training, has done incredible things, and you guys have touched many, many departments, many, many individuals. It goes, I think
we don't talk about who we touch.
Well, all right. However,
cut that.
Yeah, but you know, but where I'm going, it's getting a little sappy. But you went
Seriously.
sappy, right? Like
yeah, I did.
You guys, you're talking all these years of history or experience with all your guys. You know how many lives you've touched and changed and put in the right direction or so on. I mean, it's endless. And so for you and your guys, I mean, kudos. I mean, what you're doing, it's bigger than just training. It's bigger than just going to Thibodaux, Louisiana and lighting a hospital on fire. It's much bigger than that.
It is.
I often think of like the influence that you have as an instructor, that it's those, you know, the lives you've never even met that you've been able to influence.
Right.
Yeah, it's
huge.
It's not a quantifiable number. I'm sure when it's like fire prevention. You
But
don't know how many
that's it,
fires
right.
you've prevented by making
Right.
sure people learned it, but you've done some good work, and it's important.
But I think the message is very clear. Do the right thing. Right? Do the right thing. Enjoy the craft. Enjoy the job. Enjoy the camaraderie. Enjoy the brotherhood. And go teach a good lesson. Go help a fellow student, whether small town or big city. Help them better themselves. And if you do that, they'll in turn better somebody else. And I think that it's not any simpler than that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's it, man.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Mic drop. We're out of here. No, but anyway, I mean, Aaron, thank you. You know, we can go on and on, but Thibodaux was an incredible experience for National Fire Radio, for Rob and I being there. If you're back in March, we will tag along, whether you invite us or not. It was a great experience, and it really opened our eyes to the whole training aspect outside of county and state-run facilities.
Right.
It's just the realness of training and how important that is and how that influences firefighters in the business. And you guys keep it up. You're doing some great stuff, and I thank you. And I cherish not only you supporting us, but our friendship also. And that comes from
mutual.
I saw your bracelet sitting here with Dana's name on it, and so on. So it goes back a long way, and he's missed every day by many people.
Every day.
No doubt. And that was a guy that epitomizes what fire service is all about: the brotherhood, the camaraderie, the training, all of it. Dana Hannon, God rest his soul.
Think about him a lot.
Yeah, we all do. So anyway, on that note, Rob, we're done here. We're going to tell Aaron he's got to go. It's been a while.
Yeah.
We've been going 2 hours here, but thank you, Aaron, for joining us again tonight. Second time on the show. That's it, man. You're in a league of your own now. So, gee, what a great group to be in.
Your ratings, your ratings just took a dump.
Yeah. Anyway, well, guys, thank you for checking us out. We appreciate it. Jeremy with Rob, and of course, Aaron Heller, our guest, and always welcome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And a lot more to come about on-scene training. As soon as they post some things about the Thibodaux training, hopefully coming early 2020, we will definitely get that out to everyone. I cannot implore you enough that if you're looking for realistic training and you want a weekend of camaraderie and brotherhood, that's the place to be. And
Burning in the Bayou 2020, we're making the fire service even better again.
And on that note, we're out of here. Thanks, guys. Thanks for checking us out. Take care.